Kia ora, everybody. My name is Rachel, and I am an autistic member of Altogether Autism's Consumer Advisory Group. So welcome to today's Ask an Autistic panel. For April this year, Altogether Autism is celebrating Te Ihirangaranga Takiwātanga, or expressions of autism. So we're here today to hear from autistic people, autistic creatives, about how they express being autistic.
Kia ora, my name's Hamish Boyle. I'm an actor, voiceover person, model, poster designer, editor, reviewer, extraordinaire man.
But I'm 45. I'm a mother of two kids, two boys, 11 and 15. Originally from South Africa. Been living in New Zealand since 2012. I'm a full-time student at the moment. I've done a lot of traveling around the world and sailing, and I'm into a lot of different things.
Hi guys, I am Sophie Ward and I am a singer-songwriter from Bay 20. I am 18 and am on the autistic spectrum and loads of other spectrums.
My name is Sonia Howard. I'm a creature artist and I was diagnosed with autism at the age of 12.
For Tamara Takiwātanga, my name is Tamara Grant.
My name is Jen. I'm an autistic author and performer living in New Zealand.
Kia ora whanau, ko Tahoaroa Matatu Jerrington Ohi Atoku Ingoa.
So question number one, how do you express being autistic?
I express my autism subtly at the moment. I'm really looking forward to sharing more with the people in my life, as I was only diagnosed a few months ago officially. So I'm a master of masking and hiding parts of myself that I really want to be more open about. They're used to just knowing me as the bubbly, talented, outgoing Jen, but they don't really see behind the scenes of the sensory overwhelm and the excessive 4 hours planning every night before I go to bed to make sure that the days go so that I'm not overwhelmed from them, so that I have all my meals planned out, have all my sleep and activities and everything to a T planned. I'm really looking forward to sharing this aspect of me with the people in my life.
Autism is who I am, so it expresses itself in everything that I do. Basically, the way I process, the way I interact in the world. I think a common trait for autistics is single-mindedness. So when I have a special interest, I find myself getting very single-minded on those topics. I like to completely research it. I get fixated with those ideas, and then be it experiences or learning how to do something, I want to make that into reality, however it is. So I get fixated and push hard to learn it or accomplish whatever it is that I have in mind. The way I see the world is very detailed and geometric, so I think that plays out in my everyday life. And I really like equilibrium, so I find myself wanting to solve things. Often, if people tell me something, I will even try to solve it for them, even if they don't necessarily actually want that. And I think that my autism plays out because these special interests drive me toward those experiences that I want in life. So it's quite hard to know how it expresses, because it expresses in everything that I am and everything that I do.
Through my art, I express my differences as a way of a communication tool to other people who view it. It's very bold artwork. I have my tattoos as well, which is my artwork tattooed on me. So it's very, very bold, very colourful, other than my X Abilities logo of my social enterprise, which I painted, which is real black and white, because I wanted to accept all diversities, and that comes in black and white.
For me, a way to contribute my ASD and autism into my music is really just trying to tap into that creative space, which a lot of people that aren't on the spectrum really have. So I try and get the good sides of it. And there's a lot of good things about being on the spectrum that you can have, which is like perspective and different ways that you view the world and view people and things around you. So really just trying to tap into that, and then using that as a benefit to put into your music, if that makes sense. Because for music, you really kind of have to have that exaggerated creative side. And so for me, I use it as an ability, and it really helps me get creative with my music.
So for me, expressing being autistic is just about having the freedom to be myself and to move in the ways that I feel comfortable moving, to socialize in the ways that I feel comfortable socializing, to have a job or like a working life that fits with what works for my brain. Some of it is about being free to like do the stems that I want to do and feel comfortable with doing as well. One thing I've actually found really freeing about wearing masks is that I have all these mouth stems that I do, and I feel like normally I would try to not do those because people might look at me weirdly. But when you're wearing a mask, no one can see it. So it's actually quite nice and being quite freeing to be able to just have those going on, and also calming in a way too.
I think to me, as an artist with autism, I kind of want to be creative with my autism. So whenever there's a lot of loud noises, or if there are subtle sounds that I love hearing, I always love to put it in beats and like getting ideas and coming up with stories as well. And for me, as an uncle, I want to be creative towards my nephews and nieces. Like, want to be creative towards them, and I want them to grow up in an environment where they can express themselves. And they all don't need to be artists like me, but if they want to be like sports players or educational scientists or whatever, I want them to have that express and make them feel like they're a part of this world. And that's what I want to do with my autism, is just to create a story and come up with ideas as well.
As a kid, I had to learn social interaction on a mechanical level. I'd already spent my life breaking down literally the mechanics, the like phonetical inflections and individual micro movements in your face, and breaking down, because the what individual things meant did not intuitively come to me. I learned those as if I was learning a role, but the role was myself.
For me, autism is such an intrinsic part of who I am that I often find it difficult to sort of define specific traits that are like, oh yes, that is autistic. But sort of it ends up more to do with my hyper-focus and my drive and the special interests that sort of compel me to pursue things that other people probably wouldn't think to pursue. Like the hyper-focus that allows me to spend 8 hours digging through piles of bones to turn them into new creatures. And the drive that, like, when I did my debut exhibition of a bunch of skeletal creatures, instead of just making a bunch of skeletal creatures, I built a whole world around them where they had like theoretical behaviors and diets and environmental impacts and like taxonomies. Like I spent 4 hours scrolling through the internet trying to find Latin names to apply to these weird little dragons, just because it was what sort of compelled me forward.
To do with my artwork is portrayed in multiple different ways. So I have some to portray, say, gravity and dimensions, and then I have some that portray different steps that of natural laws that happen in life. And then I have some artwork that I use in my life coaching that for nonverbal or people who struggle with sharing their inner emotions or may be blinded to them, to help them with emotional blockage. And so I use a lot of my artwork in psychology aspects as well. But ways I communicate my autism, I've been doing public speaking for the last 7 years, so I try to explain it verbally as much as I can. And then there's the art, and also through social media. I try to really just grasp any contact to different communications, even through science, with how working together with the team Mindful Minds and neuroscience, and expressing it in just any communication tool I can to help other people.
Our second question today is, what makes you feel alive? What gives you goosebumps? What makes you feel free?
For me, it's very much being out in nature and around wild animals, because that's been my special interest for such a long time. I really enjoy studying them and just generally being around them, and then going home and creating my own versions, and that sort of feeling at the beginning of a project where you're weaving all these threads together and wading through infinite impossibilities to create something new.
For me, there's lots of things that make me feel alive and free. Definitely being outside in nature is a big one, and particularly in the wind. Like Wellington is the perfect city for me. I went to university in Auckland, and I remember like the wind was something that I really missed, because I just find it so exhilarating. And sometimes if you're feeling a bit anxious or stressed, it's nice to be outside and to like blow all the cobwebs away.
Definitely theatre. I find that like acting specifically, like being able to like mimic people's voices and like expressions has like shaped how I understand the world. I started performing on stage when I was 5, and like since then everything I do has been like to get on stage, whether it's speaking or singing or dancing or acting or whatever. So coming out of my 2-year diploma on like doing stage work, we did musicals, we got to write our own shows, which was amazing because I could incorporate like poetry and dance and acting. But yeah, it's definitely like how I express my autism is through like figuring out how to portray certain emotions, which is a very useful skill.
Making music, listening to music, going to concerts and embracing music, all kind of forms of creative art. I love animals as well. So I have Harley, my support dog. And so we always do tricks and stuff together. So those are some of the things that make me feel alive, I guess.
Just the other thing that makes me feel really alive and free is moving my body. I'm a dancer. I've done ballet since I was 4, and I find that really meditative and freeing. I love performing. Like that definitely makes me feel alive. Makes me feel alive dancing in front of people and sort of spreading joy in that way. But even just practicing dance by myself, like I sort of feel if I had to choose between only being able to take dance classes forever or only being able to perform, I would probably take class because I just love it so much, getting to like move my body and focus on making my technique better and things like that.
Ooh, so feeling alive is when I'm in the moment. I do sailing because I love the water, so sailing makes me feel alive when I'm moving across the ocean, when I feel actually away from the world. So yeah, sailing makes me feel alive, and feeling the wind on my skin, feeling sensation also makes me feel free. And anything that is tactile and to do with sensory perception makes me feel connected with myself. Sometimes it's overwhelming as well, but it makes me feel alive. Also, sound, when it resonates with me, gives me goosebumps. I feel it. I can see sound, not in a visual way, but it mixes through my sensory perception, so it's very intense, and that gives me goosebumps. I love sound. I juggle. That also makes me feel alive because that brings me into the moment, and it stops the distractions in my life, so it allows me to just focus on the moment, and that makes me feel free as well because I can be in my own world. Yeah.
So our third question today is, what does autism acceptance mean for you?
Autistic acceptance means to me, and it is a two-way street, empathy, patience, unlearning what has been learned, breaking down. What do I mean by that? I mean, autistic acceptance means breaking the previously held stigmas that we've collectively created about usefulness to society, or to either like just locally, like within, like to themselves, or to a family, or to a greater community.
If I was to say that if someone was about to say something that was harsh, it wouldn't probably be towards me. It'll probably be somewhere towards my parents, saying that when they found out that I was diagnosed, they said to my parents that I wouldn't be able to read, I wouldn't be able to write, I wouldn't be able to make friends with people, I wouldn't succeed in getting a job or graduating with a degree. But all I know is that it's just, well, I'll tell you what's wrong is that we're not all fortune tellers. Yeah, we're not all fortune tellers. We don't know how autism people will want to like move on with their lives because this is their choice. Yeah. And I have a little cousin, his name is Te Kapo, and he is also diagnosed with autism. And my auntie, she used to help me with my autism as well back when I was a little kid. And these two mothers came up to her and they said to her, is your son okay or something? And then she says, oh yeah, that's my son, but yeah, he's all right. And then he's like, is it true that he has autism? And then she says, yes. And then they say the typical, are you embarrassed? And yeah, we just all ignore that because then yet again, it's none of their business.
Autism means a lot to me, in the aspect of it's my life, and it's something you have to accept, and which sounds easy when I say it, but it's really not. Being different in any aspect, whether it's our colour of our skin, who we love, our gender, being different is a really hard thing to accept in our type of world and the way we live. So autism means a lot to me now because of how much I had to go through to accept that part of myself. And also it means a lot to me because I want other people to be able to feel the beauty that I feel in it now.
Autism acceptance means like realizing that you won't really ever understand unless you've gone through it, I think. But that like you can make allowances and you can love us as we are without trying to make us fit into the world, like your world in a way, like the neurotypical world. Like without trying to change us and just letting us be who we are and not telling us that the diagnosis isn't valid because it's like such a huge part of us. Like it is us. We are autistic.
For me, it's really just about listening to understand and knowing that you're not always going to get it right, but you need to listen to what the other person needs or observe what they need if they're unable to tell you, to help sort of bring about a more accepting environment where people do feel comfortable stimming or with their varying degrees of dysregulated behavior, that, you know, they're not hurting anyone doing that behavior. It might make you uncomfortable, but it's the only thing that's keeping them sane right now. And sort of like fostering a greater understanding of that in the general public so that everyone can be a little bit more accepting and a little bit more comfortable within the world.
So autism acceptance, what does it mean to me? It's also quite hard to contemplate for me because it seems to me that if there was inclusivity in society, there wouldn't need to be this acceptance. So if we just naturally accepted each other as human beings, then everyone would just be accepted. So I think everyone should have the same acceptance as we're asking for in autistics. But basically, I would say, how would I think about it? Acceptance would be if people could give autistics the space to be who they are, and if they could understand that autistics are just different, that we're not to be afraid of because people can't understand us. I think if people could also understand that we have sensory perception differences, and they could give us the space to be able to operate within those boundaries, then we would be able to contribute better in the world and interact better in the world. So allowing autistics to operate the way they operate and not to be judged would help us feel accepted in the world. And I don't understand jokes that neurotypicals make. I often don't understand the way communication is done. So for me, if people were able to be able to allow us to clarify ourselves and allow us to operate differently in the world than the typical norms, then that would mean acceptance to me, allowing me to be who I am and how I am in the world.
Autism acceptance is about society recognizing and celebrating the fact that neurodiversity is a good thing. We all have brains that work in different kinds of ways, and we're stronger as a society for that. And I think the way that society can show that is by not trying to change autistic behaviors or autistic ways of expressing ourselves that aren't hurting anyone.
Autism acceptance is super huge for who I am and what I want to get across to people. Using music and something that I love to get people to know who I am is a really good opportunity for me to also explain the other side that people don't see through my music, and explain the diversities that there are in autism and how it affects different people in different ways and different strengths, if that makes sense. So yeah, it's just a part of my journey and how I want to tell people and educate people the right way, instead of people just, having a conversation with people and talking about it, as opposed to just stating facts and people thinking like, I don't want to listen to that, I want it to be a part of my journey, not just music, but explaining stuff that we go through and just educating people,
Final question today is, how do you think people can show autism acceptance?
By accepting everyone, no matter what differences. Like, autism acceptance can happen by just accepting anyone that walks through your door, because you'll never know who's autistic. There's no look to it, and we all come very different. So if you just accept anyone that walks through your door, you're nailed accepting anyone with differences. And keeping an open mind with communication is how you create that universal design mind.
For me, it's really just about listening to understand and knowing that you're not always going to get it right, but you need to listen to what the other person needs or observe what they need if they're unable to tell you, to help sort of bring about a more accepting environment where people do feel comfortable stimming or with their varying degrees of dysregulated behavior, that, they're not hurting anyone doing that behavior. It might make you uncomfortable, but it's the only thing that's keeping them sane right now. And sort of like fostering a greater understanding of that in the general public, so that everyone can be a little bit more accepting and a little bit more comfortable within the world.
I think how people would work with I think people should see autism like as, you know, just the everyday normal thing. I think that's how it should be. We don't need to be seen, you know, as the, oh, this fella needs help, or we have to make sure that this dude feels safe in this space area. But then yet again, like, we can hear you, and yeah, we already know what you're saying. Like, yeah. But yeah, I think talk to them, talk about their favorite hobbies, and even if they talk about them too much, just be patient.
Yeah, just understanding that if, for example, because I know there's a lot of things that come with autism, but one of them being social skills, obviously. Just understanding that if someone on the spectrum or someone in general that you've just met, you don't know a lot about them, just understanding that if they're acting a certain way, that there could be reasons behind it, and not just to assume or judge why people are acting a certain way, to actually be able to acknowledge that there might be something going on, and then to not act like real like rude and wretched about it, you know. Just being accepting of people and letting them kind of just stroll through life and be happy, and yeah.
Ask us questions, I think. That's like a better way for acceptance to be more like integrated and normalized, is like them understanding. Like, ask me what my childhood was like. Ask me when I first thought, oh, this might resonate with me, or ask me about my diagnosis and about why things are difficult for me, and I can explain, and then they'll understand. Like, most of us, well, I'll speak for myself, I don't mind answering those kind of questions. And I honestly love when people take time to figure out me.
Understanding that autistic brains are just human brains that have been coded in a different language, and that just they can get to the same answers, and those answers can be anything. They can be social expression, they can be care, they can be literally tasks, they can be anything. They just need to, not want to. There isn't a choice to. They need to.
people can show autism acceptance by trying to keep an open mind about different ways that people might behave, and not automatically trying not to automatically judge something as weird or strange just because it's different from what you might do. I think it's also about institutions in society, particularly things like schools and workplaces, recognizing that people might need different things, different accommodations, and making those really easily available without requiring a formal diagnosis of a condition to access those accommodations. So making it just really easy to ask for like a flexible work schedule, or to be able to work from home sometimes, or whatever, because these are all things that are really helpful for autistic people, but they're probably really helpful for all people. And I think it's really important to remember that autism diagnoses can be quite hard to access, particularly for adults. And so showing autism acceptance is about accepting that you shouldn't need a formal diagnosis. You shouldn't need to be validated by a medical professional to have that identity recognized. If you feel like autism is a label that makes sense for you, then you should be accepted for who you are, and you should be able to have things at your job or at your school or whatever that make working or learning easier.
It would be nice if people could understand the way autistics process differently, and even understand how they could allow us that space to engage in the world in our own way. To accept that people can be different, and if they can give autistics the space to be who and how they are, they would be able to let down the masks, because I find that I mask my true self to people because I find that I'm too much for people. I want to know too many questions. I want to understand the world. So I take a lot more time to process than I think normal people, neurotypical people process in the world. So I think if they could give us that space and give us the understanding, even if they don't understand, but to just allow us to be different in the world. When people give us the space to be who we are and we feel validated and accepted, then beautiful things can emerge from us. Not only the fear, not only the fear of rejection, the fear of not being accepted. So I think that if we could all raise our awareness for inclusivity and compassion, not only for autistics, but also for autistics, but for everybody, then the world would be a better place.